until you're ready. Okay. So talking about the fuel pump on the Continental system. So point number 10, the pump provides more fuel than the engine needs. And the engine needs. So a return line is necessary. So a return line so I guess I can expand on that too. So the pump provides more fuel than the engine can need. Number one, so it's recirculating inside of the pump system through the high-end orifice and high-end metering orifice and the low-end bypass. Two, it's going to send it off to the fuel control unit where it also has more than it needs. And so it's going to send it back to the pump through that return line, which is what I meant there, which seems like it kind of got out of line there. Uh-oh, I deleted a point. So now I got to remember to change everything. So it's be 11, integral. An integral check valve. Integral check valve allows the boost pump to bypass the engine-driven pump, allows the boost pump to bypass the engine-driven pump. And it does that for two reasons. Well, one, for starting. And also in case of engine pump failure, in case of an engine pump failure. And I believe I had mentioned this, but I'll write it down for you. Due to the design, the engine will only operate at about 75%. Stephen, mute your mic.
Sorry, what's going on?
You're noisy.
No, oh, sorry, I didn't notice.
There, I'll just do it myself. 75% power with boost pump. There are also situations with this particular system where if you're running it, especially down at an idle, and you hit the boost pump in high, you're going to overpower the engine-driven pump and you're going to flood out the engine. It's going to run kind of crappy. So it kind of goes both ways there. All right. Did I write slow enough? You guys are kind of going there?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to slide it over. Anybody good? Have a problem with that?
1 second. Wait 1 minute. I'm almost done.
Okay. Because MJ is telling me to speed up. See, right there in the notes. Speed it up.
I think that was from yesterday.
Is it? I don't know. Maybe it was. Okay. Sliding on over. All right, let's talk about the fuel control unit. Actually, not the fuel control unit. We'll talk about and I don't have my notes in here. For some reason, I think it's just the way this book called it. Called the fuel air control unit.
Where the hell did you get D?
Nobody really knows.
Came from number 4. The
Oh, C was
after-
fuel injection pump. So we moved on to the next component, which I prefer to call the throttle body. The throttle body. All right, so the casting and bore size casting bore size is matched to the engine size. There are no venturi or impact tubes. It contains only the throttle plate, an idle adjustment, screw, and linkage to the fuel control unit. I'm going to add a note here. Some styles do contain the, where do I want to give it? It's the final metering. So what would I call that? We'll give it a good name. In the final metering orifice of the throttle shaft. That works for me anyway. All right, so here, you guys have to make your stuff bigger. I'm not going to be on this very long, but this is what I call the throttle body. And this particular throttle body, as you can see inside, there's nothing but the throttle plate. There's no venturi, there's no impact tubes. And this one just has 2 outlets because it's the way it's designed. One's going to go to the right bank of cylinders and one's going to go to the left bank cylinders. And it's got a little fitting right there where I can put my manifold pressure on. And then, as I said, it contains the, this is going to go to the black lever on this one in the cockpit. So it contains the idle speed screw right there. So you have the idle speed screw, the shaft, and the throttle plate. And then I said some styles contain the final metering orifice. Inside of here on some styles, you have the final metering orifice. On a lot of the other styles, let me see if I have a picture of it.
That one cracked.
Is this one cracked?
Yeah.
No. No. Looks good.
Looks like a crack from.
Oh, it's scratched. Yeah, we'll use this one. So this is a style I was showing you here in the upper right. No. Sorry, I don't have a good picture. Hang on, I think I can find one. Please stand by. Yeah, this picture works well enough. So the other ones, it looks just like this. So it doesn't have the fuel control unit mounted or the little final metering orifice. It just has this right here. And that's all it has. It has this shaft and the idle speed screw. And if I turned it around, you'd see nothing. And then right here is the fuel control unit bolted to it with, I said, the linkage that comes down and attaches to it. And this right here, well, as it says, is the idle mixture adjustment. So what you're doing here is speed, which just like everything else, it just controls how far the butterfly valve closes. That's all it does, and therefore restricts the air, which restricts the speed. This right here adjustment brings this arm either closer to or further away from the throttle arm. So if you think about it, when I open the throttle, I'm going to move this lever, and this is just going to move with it, and it's going to open up the metering orifice down in here. But now I'm at idle, and by bringing this particular arm a little bit closer, it'll lean it up a little bit. And by bringing it a little bit this way, it would richen it up a little bit. So you're just adjusting exactly how far away this arm is from that arm. And so that's how you adjust the idle mixture.
Kevin,
Yeah.
is that arm is full threaded or just have a little bit of thread?
No, it's not fully threaded. It's just, you don't have to move it far. So it's got an inch or so of threads. All right, August had a question. Somebody already answered it. Shaft. Okay, shaft. All right, pad back over here. Where am I here? So we're going to talk now about the fuel control unit. A, B, C, D. E, fuel control unit. Fuel control unit. It is, and this is the bigger engine style, I guess. I should have named them like style A and style B, but it is attached to the air unit, to, I'll say throttle body, attached to throttle body, and connected to the throttle by direct linkage. One side of the FCU is connected to throttle. Connected to, well, I'll be more precise, connected to, the throttle, which is what I just talked about in point number one, attached to the throttle body, connected to the throttle by direct linkage. So one side of the FCU goes to that linkage right there. And the other side of the FCU is connected to the mixture. It's a mixture in the cockpit. Okay, so the center, what I'm gonna write next is the center. It's the center plug right here. It's actually taken out right over here. This center plug, the center plug contains the fixed, well, it's called the fixed metering plug, but it actually contains the true metering orifice. So connects to it's got the metering orifice, a return line, and then the secret little check valve that's in there.
But there's a lot going on with that little plug.
I know, it's like maybe now's a good time to take one apart and look at it. Give your fingers a break. Bring it down here. Make a clean spot. Okay.
Little MJ sounds like he's going hard on the video games out there.
He is actually. It's amazing to watch him. He literally stands and jumps and he hops like the whole time he plays. He'll do it for hours and hours, and it's insane. All right, so this little thing here, I have these pins go in here, and I took them out, and I'm not going to put them back in because it's really difficult to get them in. And I thought, why waste my time doing it? So, all right, so fuel comes into here, and it goes into the screen. And this is a screen you should check every
$100.
$100
$100
for annual inspection.
Annual inspection.
Okay, so fuel comes in through here, and you can see it comes in here and goes around this way. So this kind of makes a little cavity in there where fuel comes in. So it's going to come in. This side is the mixture side because it comes in, and the first thing it's going to hit is the mixture side. So I'm going to pull this out. Whoosh. So there's my mixture side. I don't know. Can you guys see that okay? Because it does not look very clear on my end.
Could be worse.
It could be better too. Maybe just too much light. I don't know.
Looks fine to me.
What's that?
It looks fine to me.
Does it?
Same on my end.
All right, then I won't worry about it. I was going to try and adjust it, but okay. So, because I have very, very little detail here. I could zoom in. Let me see. Ooh. Is that good or bad?
Bad or good.
It's better.
There. All right, and then let me see, advanced. Ooh, that was not good.
Whoa.
Okay, I'll leave it like that. If I look at it too much, it's weird. Okay, so fuel comes in, and then inside of here, can't really see, but there you can. Down in there, maybe there's like a little cavity down here, which is made up by this. So it's a little cavity. So fuel is going to enter this right here, and fuel is going to surround that. And then there is a little orifice, right? The bigger one. So you want the bigger one. The bottom one's that secret passage. So we have this orifice right here. So fuel comes in here, and it goes through there and out this orifice. And then where it's going to go to, and you should never use steel instruments because this is all brass, but all right, there's that little plug that's in there. And so I'm going to pull the plug out, and I'm going to let you guys look at it. We have 3 orifices, and flashlight. You can see that, well, one of them goes through and the others do not. So this one right here is the main metering orifice. So this one goes all the way through, straight shot, no shot. This one here is the secret passage that has a check valve in it. And this one here is lined up with this up here. So it goes through and goes up to that one and out. Because if I turn it around, you only have 2. You got the main metering orifice that went all the way through and the secret passageway with the check valve. So, all right, so what I've got then is this lines up with that. And because it's got an eccentric, I know there's a lot of glare on there, so it's hard to see. This is very eccentric, and it's not, so it means it's not perfectly round. So it's going to go over this right here. And at some points, it's going to partially block the passage going directly through. and start opening up the passage that goes up here. So as it opens up this one and goes all the way through, I'm at full rich. As I go off of full rich, it's going to start letting more fuel go up here, which goes up to here, which comes out of here and goes back to the inlet side of the pump. So that's how
So
that's going to work. Yeah.
It's similar to the mixture control on the float type.
Yeah, pretty much. I can see how that would work. The only difference is the float type. This provides a return path. So it gives it 2 ways to go. And in the float type carburetor, only gives it 1 way to go. It just is a valve that shuts off or lets more go. But this one, because it's coming in here, so this lines up with, again, the main metering orifice hole, and at full rich, it's going to shoot it straight through, no restriction. And as I start rotating it, it's going to start blocking off a little bit of the main one and start opening up this one over here, which lets fuel go back here to the inlet side of the pump. All right, so fuel that goes all the way through at full rich just comes out of this side. And it does almost the exact same thing that it did on this side, just on this side. So it's got an eccentric piece, except for the little hole right there. And this eccentric piece right here is going to either open up this hole all the way or close this hole off almost all of the way. So at idle, full rich. This side says, go ahead, fuel, go all the way through. And remember, the engine's not turning fast anyway. You're running off of the back in the pump. We have the low end relief valve is open. It's not a lot of fuel coming through, but it gets to the mixture and the pilot says, no, you just go ahead and be full rich. So this is full rich, sends all the fuel through this little orifice. All the little fuel comes to this orifice. And then this is calibrated to hold that orifice pretty dang tight. It's not open very much at all. So this does brings the final metering jet all the way down to very tiny size. Fuel then comes into this area here, and it comes into here, and it goes out to the fuel manifold or distributor valve. And so we increase the throttle, and as I increase the throttle, remember this thing is actually tied, literally tied with the rod to the throttle valve. So I open the throttle valve, and this opens up, and that just opens the orifice more and lets more fuel come out of here. So I'm running at wide open throttle, I'm flying along or cruise or whatever, and the pilot says, well, I'm gonna lean it out a little bit. So this is attached to the red knob in the cockpit, and just pull on it, lean it a little bit more, I'm not sure if it's pull or push at this point. But I rotate it a little bit to the lean position. It blocks off a little bit of this orifice and makes it just a little bit smaller. And on this end over here, maybe it's all the way open or blocked a little bit, but between the two, they just set the orifice size to let it go. Now there's that secret little passage I told you about with the check valve. It lets fuel go that way, back to the pump. So when I go to idle cutoff and pull this back to idle. So when this is all the way in idle and this one goes to idle cutoff, there's a little tiny hole right there. And there's a little tiny hole on this one right there. And those line up with each other. And then they also line up with the one with the check valve in it and lets fuel go, just line back up. Lets the fuel go backwards into this, through the check valve, through that little tiny hole, into this space, which was attached to here, and goes back around to the pump. So it drains down the distributor valve or fuel manifold valve so that it's allowed to collapse and the no pressure holds it up off of its seat. Now, that's how that works. That's not so hard. Questions?
Yeah, what will keep that little drum from turning?
Oh,
How do you?
right there.
Oh, okay.
So this is the hard part about this. All right, so you get the 3 holes going that way, and use something that's not metal or steel and push it in there like a nice wood dowel so you don't scratch it. Because if you scratch any scratches in this thing, and you ruined it. Because these holes are really so small in it that any little scratches against here are going to allow extra fuel to go, and it ruins it. Now the hard part is this right, you can see that's spring loaded, and I think the spring is kind of jammed up and it's all dirty and I can't move it. So I should be able to actually compress this, and I can't. Let me see this one here. can't even compress this one. And that's why I couldn't get it back together. So these things are supposed to compress. So when I put it in here, spring pressure holds these two things on that plug, and then these pins right in here like that. But I can't even compress it at this point. So it was very hard to get the pins out. And actually the little plate goes on here. So I shall have to soak those in something. So this is this one. Do you want to see how the other one works since we're on the subject?
Yeah.
Yeah, like sure, keep him busy. Okay, so this type goes with the style that does not have the mixture control back here. So that right there is a low end. That's all that is. No mixture control. All right, but this style that has this attached to the throttle body, that does not have the linkage. I told you there's linkage that connects to the, well, it doesn't. So right here, this linkage goes right to the black knob in the cockpit. Doesn't touch anything else but this. This moves here and stuff happens inside of here, as where the other one would be attached kind of like this. And then these two are linked together, and that's what that looks like. But when I add this, then that changes everything. That means that I need this fuel pump that has this adjustment on the back. So that right there, you know what it is. That's the low end adjustment, high end adjustment, no touchy. This right here is the mixture control. It goes to the cockpit, and the pump works exactly the same, except the screws are tight. Except the mixture is built into the back of this, is where on this one, the mixture is built into here. So here's my mixture on this one. There's the mixture on this one right here. Let me get that out. So what happens is, you can see here's the outlet for the fuel. So it's, instead of having the outlet anywhere near the pump body, it pumps it backwards through here, and the outlet becomes, oh, I broke it. The outlet is right here. So there's a very small hole up here that is the outlet, and that lines up with this shaft with these holes. So it starts out where this is kind of flush, and then it starts to get more cut out, more cut out, more cut out, and then it's flush back on this side. And so it's kind of hard to line up with the camera and show you, but basically what happens is at one spot at full rich, fuel is going to come in through here and then fill this chamber and then go out the bottom. And so that's full rich. And then as I go to lean, what's going to happen is I'm going to start plugging up the holes so less comes through here and to the outlet and out. There's also the secret little check ball. I don't know if you can see it. It's very, very tiny right there. The secret little check ball. And sure enough, when you line up, let me see, do I have the check ball? No, there's the check ball. There one's a pin to hold it. There's a little check ball, and it does the same thing. When I have it in idle cutoff, this check ball goes straight down to the outlet here and allows fuel to come up through here backwards into the little hole, through the check ball, inside of here, out one of these holes and back up into the pump. So they kept the check ball theory going. So that's my mixture, right? So it just controls, again, it controls the size of the orifice of how much is leaving the pump to go off to the rest of the fuel control. So this has got fuel control unit several feet apart. But this right here then, remember if we had this one here, we had an orifice, main metering jet, and then, or sorry, with a main metering jet, and then something that controlled the orifice size on one side and something that controlled the orifice size on the other side. Doing the same thing. It's just several feet apart. So this right here is attached directly to the throttle for a reason. Somebody's gonna have to come over here and put all this stuff together.
That's what your daughter's for.
I just put it in a box and hand it to her. Hey, I'm not sure which went to which anymore. Could you just put all this together? All right, so this is under spring pressure. All right, right there, that screw. What is that screw for?
Mixture adjustment.
Yes, idle mixture. That screw right there is for
Idle speed.
idle speed. Okay, I'm gonna try and take this apart here so you can see. There we go. Okay, this is kind of a difficult concept, but well, I'll do that later. So basically what you have is, still feel like that's, I don't know how you can see it, it's such a glare. So this brass part is actually held stationary, and it has this little orifice right there. And so fuel is going to come in, let's see, fuel is going to come in here and fill this up, go through this orifice, and then behind here is another eccentric plate. So it's really the exact same thing as this throttle valve, but just huge. And so this is like the main metering orifice right there, that little hole that we saw in the plug over there. So that's it. And it stays put. It doesn't move. And then when I move the throttle, it moves this right here. And because it's eccentric, it's either blocking this little hole or uncovering the hole. So at idle, it's going to cover it almost all the way. And then at full throttle, it's going to open it up. And so it's just moving it back and forth. And then it goes into here. And that allows it to come out of here and then off to the fuel manifold, or what was I calling it? The other one, distributor valve. The way the idle mixture works is kind of smart if you ask me. So all of this is. So down in here, there's a little space where I just stuck the screwdriver and a screw, and this is a spring down here. There's this little spring. So this pin fits down in there. And so if I tighten the screw down, it rotates it this way. And if I loosen it, it rotates this way. So what it does is it fine tunes exactly where that little orifice is. So if I set set this at idle and I think, well, that's still a little bit rich, by turning the screw, I move this ever so slightly and leans it out, or the other way, and it makes it just a little bit richer. So that's why that's got the pin, but it's allowed to rotate with the screw and holds it still. So I don't know.
And it's the same test to check the mixture.
Exactly. Yeah. Put it in idle, pull the idle mixture back. If you don't get a rise, then you're running too lean. So I got to richen it up. So I just turn a little screw to richen it up, and that moves this a little bit, and it changes the relationship between the eccentric and the orifice, and opens the orifice just a little bit more. If I want it to go rich, close a little bit. If I want it to go lean. The hardest part about this is getting it back in, because it actually can go one of three ways, but actually one of two ways. But I can save that for another time. I'll just put it like that. And my video knew to just jump over just like that. How did it know? Seems to be any sort of vibration does that. Let me share.
Smart camera.
I guess it is, yeah. Hey. Oh, wait, we got to do this. We got to zoom back out. We don't want that thing zooming in. All right. What are we doing? 6:04. All right. Fuel control unit attached to the throttle body, connect to the throttle. Okay, we got there's something about center. What was I about center? The center, it's where it contains the nougat, I guess. Center contains a fixed metering plug, a fixed metering plug. All right, one chamber. One chamber, I'll put this on the mixture, connects with fuel return. fuel return. And not sure I like what I wrote here. One chamber connects mixture control valve to metering valve. No, I don't like that. Center. Maybe I'll just leave it like that. Center contains a mixture plug. One, or I could say one passage. If we're talking about that would work. So I'm talking about the metering plug. We say we're just talking about the metering plug. Then the metering plug, I could say one passage. One passage connects to the fuel return, and another passage is the we'll call it main metering orifice. And then I'll say there is a third passage. There is a small third passage that has a one-way check valve. Check valve that allows fuel to drain from the manifold valve. Manifold valve. That's also distributor valve, from the manifold valve back to the pump when throttle lever is in idle and mix is in ICO. You have to have both of those conditions to line up those little tiny holes. If you don't have those conditions, then that check valve isn't really going to do anything for you.
And what was the point of it draining back again?
It relieves the pressure on the manifold valve, which is actually held open by fuel pressure and a diaphragm and a spring. And so if you don't bleed off that pressure, it's going to hold the manifold valve open, which then allows fuel to be sucked into the engine still while it's trying to, what should be shutting down, and it won't. All right, that makes sense. That's the center there. So now we can talk about the not centers. So, and what's happening. So fuel enters. Did that make sense to you, Mark, what I said?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Actually.
Okay, good. Fuel enters inlet and passes through a screen and passes through a screen to the mixture control. So one, in lean position. So in the lean position, causes some fuel to be routed to main metering orifice and some fuel to return port. So yeah, you got to split. And depending on how lean it is or how rich it is, it depends on how much is going over towards the return line and how much of it is going off through the metering orifice over to the throttle side. we'll put in rich position. All fuel is sent to metering orifice. All right, so that's the mixture side. So then it goes through the center, which we already talked about, and then it's going to hit the throttle side. So then the throttle side.
When you say return port, you do mean the fuel tank, right?
No, not the fuel tank, back to the pump. Remember, the pump has 5 hose connections: drain, fuel inlet, fuel return. Let's try again. Drain, fuel inlet from the tank, fuel inlet from the fuel control unit, vapor vent overboard, and what am I missing here?
The outlet to the fuel control unit.
Oh, out to the fuel control unit. Yes, out. Did I miss that one?
You got to get there before you can go back.
No, no. So, all right, well, here we go. So 5. 1, drain. 2, pump inlet. 3, fuel pump outlet. 4, vapor return. And 5, other inlet that's being hidden. And we are talking currently about this fuel control unit. So I said the center plug. The center plug, let me see, okay, where am I? Center plug contains the fixed metering plugs. There's what I'm calling the main metering orifice right there. So the main metering orifice, and then I also said there's a return. So here's the mixture side. Fuel comes in through the inlet, goes through the screen, comes down, goes to the mixture control arm, which is connected to the red knob in the cockpit directly. And in the rich position, fuel goes right through here to here. In the lean, any lean position, as we start leaning, it's going to send some fuel this way and some fuel, you can't see it in the drawing, but it's there, some fuel this way back to the return to the fuel pump, which is was the hidden one on the backside, right? And now we're going to talk about this side, which is the, I said something else, the throttle metering. I'm going to call that the throttle metering linkage arm. That's what I wanted to call it. See, I'm making it up as I go. The throttle metering arm is linked to the throttle body. Throttle. So it's linked directly to the throttle body's throttle arm. And it also has a metering effect. So it has, what am I saying? Metering, the metering valve, which I call the throttle metering arm. So it's at the end of it. The throttle metering valve has a cam that, I want to say this, that changes the opening of the main metering jet. There we go. As throttle is opened, the metering jet opening, opening is enlarged, allowing more fuel to flow, allowing more fuel to flow. And the opposite is true. As we close it, less fuel will flow. All right, what kind of questions do you guys have about this? Does it make sense? Are you seeing how it works? Do you have the picture? There's a lot of components here, but it's really not
What
all
about
there's no magic to it.
automatic mixture control?
What about an automatic mixture control?
Yeah.
Don't have one.
Earlier on when you had the main metering jet with the two ends where it has the 3 holes where they connect where the fuel goes in, back through out. What I was kind of confused about was you said one of them's a return where it goes back out the opposite direction than the other two.
Yep.
So they open on the, I'll show you my camera to like, so when one goes like this and the other goes like that, do they line up in sync? Or, see what I'm trying to say, when you have like the rod opening on the, I'm horrible with words. So I'm trying to say when
hang on. So you're saying that I kept saying the secret passage with the check valve?
Yeah.
It's only lined up under one scenario. When you have it in idle and you have it in idle cutoff. So one side, you have to pull the black lever all the way to idle, pull the red knob all the way back to idle cutoff. Then there are passages that will line up in there that the check valve allows fuel to go backwards through the unit. That's the only time it'll happen.
Okay.
And that drains off fuel from the manifold valve or distributor valve, if you will.
What controls the fuel when the air density or temperature changes?
Nothing.
So I know you said there's no AMC, but does there need to be?
No. Well, a lot of the stuff doesn't have an AMC. Carburetors don't have an AMC. A lot of pressure carbs don't have an AMC. The Bendix fuel system, a lot of them don't have an AMC. So AMC is really not something that is just automatically there. So a lot of this doesn't, but you have to keep in mind that we can add a component, which I'll talk about in a little bit, for a turbocharger, but a lot of these systems, as we're looking at it here, we're looking at the simple system. We're looking at a normally aspirated engine. Once we start getting into turbocharging, well, we're going to add some real complexity to this stuff. And you're going to be looking at it going, whoa, that was wild. I mean, not to this system here, we're just going to add a bellows to it, which delays the operation. It's not that complicated, but certainly the turbocharging system has a lot of controllers to it. So, but this one, if your air density is off and as you go up in altitude, you don't have anything that automatically does it. You're just going to use the manual mixture control, the red knob. That's what it's there for. So you can't be lazy on this one.
Got to be a good pilot.
You got to pay attention. Yeah, be a good pilot. You just got to pay attention.
Kevin?
Yeah.
What most likely will go wrong on these besides the O-rings and stuff like that?
What can go wrong? I think one of the biggest things that could go wrong is scratching those little parts inside of the fuel control unit. If you get any scratches or sand in there and you score it, because just think about how little those passages were. Those were tiny. And I think this is probably off of a 0470. I know for a fact this one is off of an IO 360 off the Cessna Skymasters outside because I stole it off of it. Those are tiny little passages for 470 cubic inch. And so you think about if you scratch it with a piece of sand, you're going to have an alternate path and you've got problems. So that's the number one thing. Honestly, out in the field, how many times did I have somebody come to me and say, hey, my fuel control unit's messed up? Never. I never had one that I had to pull off. I only had them that sometimes they'd complain about something and say, well, when was the last time you actually had it fuel flowed and set up? They'd say fuel flow and set up. I go, well, you repeated me, so I know you have no idea what I'm talking about. I said that in here. So I'd say, well, why don't we set up your fuel flow? And then that solved any problems I've ever had. So I think it's a great system. Probably if anything's going to go wrong, it's usually just the seals back here in this end, where it attaches to the engine. But even then, I never had a problem with them. So I think the biggest problem is somebody touching the no touchy. No touchy. No touchy. When you touch those, then it's bad. I know it's 6:20. Jeez, Janet, would you make dinner for everybody? So slowly. All right, 6:20. So I will see you guys in about 40 minutes.
See you.